Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. A week ago, a little over a week ago, Aptera was at Tesla Takeover in San Luis Obispo. Several Tesla content creators were there, and they have now released their Aptera videos. There's one by Tesla Raj, and it's very good as an introduction to the vehicle. So if you've never heard of Aptera before, and this is your first introduction, Tesla Raj does a very good introduction video, kind of telling you about the vehicle. But I watched the video and it's basically stuff most of us already know. So but if you have some friends that don't know about Aptera, it's a pretty good video to watch. Then Brian at My Tesla Weekend, he has an excellent interview with Chris Anthony, and answers a lot of the questions that people want to know about. And I recommend that you watch the whole video. I will link both Tesla Raj and My Tesla Weekend, Brian's video. But I thought that we would watch excerpts of his video together and comment a little bit. But I recommend you go watch the whole video. It's an excellent interview that Brian does, and has a lot of good information.
It's asking me.
We hope to have our first validations by the end of the year. We're actually commissioning all the body tooling now in Italy.
Oh, great.
The big carbon fiber SMC tools. They weigh like 8,000 pounds, and they're these big dies that come together to make the parts. We've actually produced our first production body part. It's actually the cover that covers this latch here. We made this into a separate piece, and that's the first production piece that's come out of our new.
Okay, so now we know that's the first production piece right there. And they're saying that they're going to have a validation model hopefully by the end of this year. Now, he doesn't say that that is funding dependent. So it sounds like there's probably enough funding to make this validation model. And the probably is probably because they're wondering if there's some any like engineering or supply chain kind of issues. There may be some issues with that, but it doesn't sound like that part is funding dependent, which is good.
Molds at CPC in Italy. The next mold they're going to commission is probably going to be the body side. So very soon we'll have body sides, and in just a couple months we'll basically have a whole body structure that is production ready for validation of the drivetrain and the battery pack and the safety systems and all that. And that'll probably take another 6 months. So we're hoping to hand somebody the keys to a new Aptera by next summer.
There's no homologation.
Okay, so they're hoping to have the first deliveries by summer of next year. Now, he didn't say that that is funding dependent either, but I suspect that part is funding dependent. Maybe there'll be a small trickle of vehicles that come out, but large-scale production, enough to get all the accelerators, their vehicles, is going to take a lot of funding. So anyway, so the timeline, you heard it directly from Chris Anthony, is validation model by the end of this year, hopefully, and then the first customer deliveries by summer of next year, so a year from now. Okay, now a lot of people asked about manual release of the door, and there was a kind of a humorous incident at My Tesla Weekend that shows that.
How to take it out.
Oh, is it power on or is it power off? Power's off, I think. Oh, there's a little bar under your seat. Can you scoot your seat forward like 3 inches? There we go. There's a manual release back here.
So the neat thing that they're doing,
It's not really a production intent thing. There'll be a manual release down here in the production version.
Okay, so you heard it, that there is a manual release. So if, a lot of people had questions about that. I've seen several comments about a manual release. There will be a manual release. It looks like kind of next to the seat in the front. In the Gamma vehicle, it's behind the seat. So in the release vehicle, it's going to be more towards the front, it sounds like.
Yeah.
so the way they get you to stay faithful to Aptera is by not letting you out of the car.
The power's not on, so again, we should turn the power on. You got to tell people not to close the door if the power's not on.
It's still absolutely gorgeous. No one's going to deny that. You're thinking 6 months-ish.
Validation vehicles by the end of the year. Then we actually have to go through durability validation, calibration.
Sure.
We don't think that we'll feel comfortable handing somebody the keys to an Aptera until next summer.
Next summer.
We could hand somebody the keys at the end of this year, but it would be an unrefined,
You want it to be done.
unvalidated vehicle, yeah.
And on the price, we're still targeting 26 base.
26.9 base. The launch edition is 33.5. That gets you 400 miles of range, all the solar and all-wheel drive.
Okay, so as of about 10 days ago, Chris Anthony is still sticking to the price, 26.9 or 33.5 for the launch edition. So it's starting at 26.9. So does not look like they've decided to increase the price of the vehicle, which is somewhat surprising to me after all the inflation over the past 2 years. Now, the good part is that there's actually been deflation of some of the battery components and battery parts. So I think that the pricing has come down a little bit, and so they feel comfortable sticking with the original price, which is somewhat surprising. I just assumed that they would be increasing the price, but I would have thought that by now, if they were planning on increasing the price, that they would be hedging here a little bit. That Chris Anthony would say something like, we're thinking 26.9 at this moment, but there may be pricing changes. He did make some mention of that in previous interviews several months ago, but he sounds like he's sticking with the price now. So perhaps the cost of parts have come down over the last several months, and they feel more comfortable sticking with the price, which I think is good news.
All the solar and all-wheel drive. Okay, and how's your cash situation doing?
What's
the cash situation?
We're feeling really good. We've got enough money in the bank to really push things forward, and the crowdfunding that we've been able to raise, we're already the most successful crowdfunding in history. We're hoping to extend that in the next 6 months. Basically, raise crowdfunding money, take on some debt, some equipment financing, and hopefully find some bigger investors over the next 6 months.
Okay, so Chris didn't very specifically answer the question. I think that's to be expected. We shouldn't expect a company to give like exact financial details. So he didn't say, "Oh, we have 6 months of runway, or 8 months of runway, or 9 months of runway." I have heard off the record from several other sources that the accelerator program has been very successful and has given them a lot of runway and a lot of breathing room. So that is good. So I think that they have enough funding to make it to make the validation models and go through validation. And I think they need extra funding to go to ramp production, basically, to tool up for ramping production. And I thought a very interesting thing that Chris mentioned here is that it looks like they are planning on taking on debt financing. So they are planning on taking on debt. And by that, I don't know if he's talking about the ATVM loan, which would be debt financing. That would be like a very, very good debt because the interest rate on that would be very, very low. Or if he's talking about taking on commercial debt from the bond markets, that is something else. But it's clear that they haven't found any large investors yet, and they've been looking for these large investors for the past several years, and they've always sounded hopeful about finding these large investors. But it looks like they get a lot of positive messaging from them, but no one has actually written a check.
The markets, I think, have kind of loosened up the last 3 months, and I think we're starting to have more positive conversations with higher dollar investors. We're also still talking with some big investors that could fund the whole program. Steve's over in the Middle East right now on a trip to discuss some possible
they have some
support.
money over there?
So yeah, it looks like Steve Fambro is back in United Arab Emirates and probably talking to these sovereign investment funds, and they obviously could easily fund it. As you guys know, Lucid was funded to the tune of, I think, $1 to $2 billion by the Saudi Arabian private investment fund. The place that Steve Fambro has connections with, because he worked there for a little while, is Abu Dhabi. They also have an extremely large sovereign investment fund, so they could, $50 million to that fund is negligible, and they could easily fund it if they wanted to.
Europe and Asia and the Middle East seem to be deploying capital, but
you're
the
not
U.S.
kidding,
is not.
though. You're not kidding though. The last year for fundraising, for bond raise, for just even for IPO, I mean, it's been tough.
It seems like some IPOs are on the docket now, so I think the equity markets will hopefully loosen up. But really, the debt markets is what are taking off because interest rates are high. So.
Okay, so he mentions the debt markets again, which makes me feel like they had their plan B. This is totally speculation, guys. I have no inside information from Aptera, and I'm just completely speculating. I think that they realize that they have not found a whale investor yet. They are still pursuing those whale investors, and Steve Fambro is in the Middle East right now pursuing, extremely large whale investors, these sovereign investment funds, or maybe some private individuals over there as well. But I think their backup plan is, number one, get the ATVM loan. I think that's, again, I've always said it, I think that's their best chance at getting financing to ramp production. If that doesn't come through, I think their backup plan is to undergo commercial debt financing in the bond market. Now, that'll be very expensive for a startup like Aptera. I think, they would be like basically junk bond status. So it would be extremely expensive, but if they're willing to pay a really high interest rate, that may be where they need to go if they don't find some investor that's willing to take on an equity stake in return for an infusion of capital. Okay, so anyways, check this out, guys. My Tesla weekend interview with Brian. He's got a lot more stuff. Check out the whole thing. And thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.